Okay, I get it. This'll be a tough sell. I doubt I'll even convince most of you. But the second season of My Hero Academia has been quite disappointing thus far. Upon further scrutiny, I believe I may have reached a possible conclusion as to why I think the show is falling short. Here is my in-depth, critical analysis of why My Hero Academia is more imitation than original creation. No one will debate the fact that Hiro Aka is heavily couched and directly inspired by the shonens that come before. I'm sure there is great passion when the author puts pen to paper, illustrating another genre-faithful chapter of this series. Looking back on those soaring emotions, immense hype, and bombastic fight scenes, replicating those feelings in this new story is of utmost priority. Clearly, this show is accomplished at creating those moments, sparking feelings, relating to motivations, and most importantly, making it fun for the audience. People love this show. But how Hiro Aka goes from premise to said moment is where it lacks any meat. When traveling from point A to point B, the journey itself does not seem to be as important as the destination. This may seem like a pretty vague point, but don't worry, I'll tie it up over time. I feel as though a framework of feelings were overlaid on a grid, where hitting each one at the right time was all that mattered. The in-between, or the execution, is bare minimum storytelling. I didn't notice as much of this issue in Season 1, maybe because it was a new show or the beginning was written better, but in Season 2 it has been exhaustingly abundant. But hey, it's a tournament arc. Everybody loves a tournament arc. Get hype. It's tournament time. Every self-respecting shonen has to have a tournament arc. Exactly. Yet, what we get is this poorly constructed, nonsensical, rushed, and unimportant slog. Well, except for those big moments where the music soars and the speed lines flare and the crowd cheers. It feels forced. The first game of the tournament is this horribly thought out obstacle course race. There's literally no coherent sense of space ever set up during this event. This show seems to just throw out robots when it can't think of an interesting obstacle. Just a bunch of robots. How many? I don't know. Can you use their parts? I guess. How strong are they? Beats me. Where are they coming from? Who cares? It's just a bunch of random, unconnected scenes of cool robot fighting. This is like competition based on relative placement to the other combatants. See race. But for some reason those positions are never established, and judging by logic, Todoroki should have easily won. I mean, come on, look at how embarrassingly vapid he makes every challenge look, but still ends up slowing back to the main pack. It has to tell us point blank that this armor Izuku picks up is from the robot Todoroki defeated, because it sure as hell wasn't going to show us that. God forbid a little bit of continuity. Literally, what is happening in this scene? How can there be any tension when nothing about the competition is conveyed like one? It's like looking at a scoreboard at a basketball game and seeing the score just randomly change to fit a narrative when no one is even scoring. But wasn't it a cool moment when Izuku dug up all those mines with a big metal slate and gathered all 20 together then explode off of them? No, wouldn't carrying that big hunk of metal slow him down considerably, and by the time he even got to the third challenge he would have already lost, because up until that point he had done nothing but slow himself down, and nothing yet had slowed Todoroki down at all since the very beginning. Gathering up all those mines would have taken an equally considerable amount of time, plus it's very likely that he could set them off just by the force it would take to move them into one spot. But whatever, look how cool this is. Whoa! I didn't find this maneuver smart or inventive. I found it a convenient way to make Izuku win. Fight a bunch of robots, jump on a bunch of cliffs, and traverse a minefield. This doesn't sound like professional manga. It sounds like something you'd make up in 3rd grade in your Naruto fanfiction. Woo! Izuku wins! Look at those speed lines. What a shonen. Before I tear into the cavalry battle, I'll address the unimportant comment I made earlier. It's funny how the show almost accidentally contradicts its thematic goals with actual coherent analysis of its own flaws in construction. Instead of building a fortified boat, it would rather just repair the leaks with duct tape later on. Episode 15 is hilariously both self-aware and oblivious to how clearly it destroys the whole premise of the season. All Might, with classic genre flair, implores Izuku to give it all he's got in the festival. But like the smart, analytical boy he is, Izuku then lists all the reason why this is meaningless and why we shouldn't care. After the events concluding Season 1, we shouldn't be worrying about some festival. He already has All Might as a teacher, so he doesn't need to stand out. And he's at the Master One for all, so winning would either be impossible or very dangerous. Wait a second. Yeah, that makes sense. What the hell? Plus, they're only first years, so they have 2 more attempts. They probably matter the least to the hero orgs, who are paying more attention to the mysterious 2nd and 3rd years we haven't seen yet, but who have more experience and will be available sooner for the workforce. I mean, if the main character is apathetic to the whole thing, how will the audience care? I think the author realizes that he just wrote the story into a hole and now had to dig out of it. And all the All Might does to convince him otherwise is one line reminding Izuku of one of the show's patented shonen moments of growth. The reasons why participating would be important could have been explained way more effectively to Izuku than this. He could have been reminded that he won't learn how to use one for all without practicing, and this tournament is a less dangerous, lower stake practice arena to do that in. We see that happen in the cavalry battle. He's able to use it without any further harm. It's a sloppy scene that the author feverishly attempts to correct and immediately attempts to birth a new rivalry literally out of nowhere with Todoroki to better inspire Izuku, which only gets semi-interesting like 6 episodes later. That was one example, but here's another one. In Izuku's first fight against General Studies student Shinso, the announcers criticized the entrance exam challenge, explaining how it's poorly thought out and unfit to test non-physical based quirk users. I mean, come on, this is the Hero Academy, and yeah, that challenge was pretty stupid in retrospect. Or how about making the convenient excuse for Yuga to be able to use his belt because he asked earlier or whatever, even though the point of having support even be there was they were able to exclusively use their own inventions. But I guess not. You can have a quirk and a bunch of cool gear if you just ask beforehand. Seems legit. Seems like this whole tournament, participants, and rules are really thoroughly planned. Definitely doesn't feel like duct tape. Name 2 support team members. I thought so. I'll discuss the one-on-ones later, but let's get back to the cavalry battle. Number 1, what the hell even is this? I get that this is a popular thing in the old Nihon and kids often partake in this activity during festivals, but it doesn't work when these kids also have superpowers. Yet again, a challenge so poorly constructed that it's almost impossible for the animators to convey what's happening in a sensible way. Watching these globs of 5 people move defied all logic, and it got to a point where I'm just waiting for the author to write in what happens next. Instead of experiencing the battle, I'm just looking for point Bs. How exactly was this guy able to sneak up and steal all the headbands? We'll never know. There's this one part where this Class B student uses his copy ability quirk, but the show hides what exactly his quirk is for a bit to leave the audience and the other characters in suspense. When the quirk is revealed as copy, it's treated as this big revelation that such a unique and complicated quirk exists. Hey Hiraka, go talk to JoJo before acting like these 2 moments deserve the same reaction. But hey, you must make those moments happen no matter how flimsy. It was in JoJo, another popular shonen. This is where I got sick of the incoherence and my mind started to wander, thinking thoughts like how in the hell was the Hero Academy able to fill this colossal stadium and captivate millions more at home on television with a bunch of 14-year-olds playing this weird, convoluted 5-person game of chicken. This must have looked ridiculous and would have honestly been pretty boring and hard to follow. So would the obstacle course for that matter, not even taking place within the stadium, but hey, here's a quick line about camera bots. Yeah, can I have a side of duct tape with that? I'm fine with abstraction. I get that it's an anime, but I've seen Jackson Pollock paintings with more consistency. Okay, that was a long number 1. Number 2, the scoring is stupid. First of all, first place should not start with 10 million points. That's actually just comedy, not a strategic addition. Like maybe making the top spot be worth 1,000 points would make sense. There you could still keep the similar strategic angles, but if left with just the 1,000, you could still possibly end up losing. 10 million is just stupid. All it leads to is the strategy of Izuku running away the whole time. Exciting. I know it's supposed to parallel the message of being number 1 is what counts and what you should strive for, but it seems like a really overly blunt and cheap way to do it that contradicts the game mechanics of the competition. Also, this comment about not getting too many headbands, like they would stack so high you couldn't see anymore, a point literally disproved later as Copyboy clearly just places it over another one like a rational person. Not even a rational one. They would inevitably fall due to all the movement. Like you couldn't even create this outcome even if you wanted to, but it's treated as a serious negative to consider while gathering too many points. It may feel like I'm nitpicking, but what is so entertaining about most shonen battles is the intense strategy, the metaphysical chess game that can make a simple game of dodgeball one of the most epic battles ever. That combined with the special moments makes them special. By implementing real stakes, interesting character dynamics, consistent rules, deep strategy, good conveyance, threatening opponents, and the cool moments, creates an interesting battle. Hiraka only gets one of these right in Season 2, which leads to the one-on-one battles. My main problem with these are how insanely rushed each match is. All of them end incredibly quick, and even Bakugo and Arabaka's battle has very little going on, with one interesting move attempted and failing. The only reason there exists any intrigue in that one is we actually know anything about the combatants while also lasting more than a single volley. There isn't much to say. All 6 fights occurring between Izuku's and Bakugo's lasted on average 64 seconds. I timed it. I've seen more intense battles than Pokemon. Are you kidding me? In a show with 1 chapter per episode pacing, I'm used to it ringing out every single second like sap from a tree. That previously slow pacing makes these new episodes especially stand out as lazier than usual. And I don't mean visually. This show looks great. I mean from a writing perspective. Most of the battles seem to be played for comedy, which, Yeah, okay, it's this lighthearted school festival, you would argue, but this is not just some lighthearted school festival. This is more akin to like NCAA regulation like testing, and the show treats it as such. Uraraka's very disheartened after losing the battle with Bakugo, but then all these other battles are treated so lightheartedly. What is going on? Why is it written like this? Why do we zoom through all of the fights in one episode? I don't get it. There's actually a larger point about that comedy that I'll get to a little later, but first I want to get to a segment I like to call Hunter x Hunter Did It Better. Everything, but more specifically, world building. One major thrust of motivation to continue watching Hunter x Hunter is how mysterious and grand they made the world seem. Starting Gon on a small secluded island is perfect, because it mirrors the amount of growth he still needs to go through. As the scope of his world grows larger, so will his skill. The endless possibilities in a world like Hunter x Hunter could never be matched by My Hero Academia. Being set on Earth in present time, there's little it could do with setting that would capture the adventurous spirit Hunter x Hunter, One Piece, or even FMA have. Hunters are cooler than heroes. The almost nomadic qualities of hunters, forging their own specific path, cultivating their own priorities, untethered by a code of heroic ethics, lets there be more consistently unique outlooks on life to explore. A person like Gon can be a hunter just as a person like Hisoka can be. Many times their abilities are hidden, only being revealed once needed, but here Akka designs are so simplified it gives most of the intrigue away. This is Tree Man, and here's Frog Girl. There was always this lingering question of who the strongest hunter is, what powers lie beyond what is known. Well, here we know it's All Might. He is the strongest, by far, and the show immediately spoils that Izuku is the eventual strongest in the world after him. Okay, cool. Quirks suck. Nen rules. Quirks are given at birth, predetermined the same way eye color would be. The fact that personalities usually line up with quirk abilities seems a bit tenuous, but I'm willing to buy that. The thing is, other than learning to control a quirk more effectively, how would one improve a quirk and reinvent themselves? With Nen, every person has a predisposition to a certain Nen ability, but from there they are able to shape and mold what type of fighter they prefer to be. Hiro Akka has quirks influencing personalities, where Hunter x Hunter has personalities influencing Nen. Nen also leaves room for more and more extremely diverse and strategic abilities. Quirks are often extremely simple, and being an already vague concept with very little in terms of rules, tend to be static. When the students train, it's not equivalent to mastering a deeply personal art like Nen, but more in line with physical fitness. The Season 2 opening is showing the preparation performed by all the students, which seems to include deep breathing and stretching. That concludes the segment, Hunter x Hunter Did It Better. What My Hero Academia has going for it is the stunning visuals by Studio Bones, an extremely likable cast, and its effectiveness at creating the point Bs. The final arc of Season 1 was an exciting fight against actual threats, and even then the pacing was slow and the sense of space was lacking, but it had enough there for me to buy in. There was a moment in the tournament arc that genuinely intrigued me when the One for All appeared in front of Izuku. He could see the spirits of the lineage, and I thought it would lead to some self-discovery type journey, and only when Izuku taps into the past lives will he master One for All. But apparently, nope, All Might barely knows what he's even talking about, and actually doesn't matter, you'll be great without it. You know, it kind of reminded me of Avatar. Actually, a lot of the elements in this show does. Aang having to get in touch with the past lives to gain wisdom and knowledge to better use his powers, not only improving in skill, but achieving a broader worldview. It's a whole thread of deeply engaging stuff that apparently we won't get since All Might never did. Todoroki's character arc and his big fight with Izuku was almost word for word Prince Zuko. I mean, episode 23 is such a beloved masterpiece, but why? It spends so much time speeding through this character's story that it completely distracts from the fight. What takes Zuko years to achieve with several low points, high points, confrontations, and loss to break through and finally be a hero, Todoroki does it all in a single episode. Being so heavily focused on this makes the fight feel like just a bunch of back and forth blasts. The characters too are so focused on emotion, like the author, that there is literally no strategy. No one ever adapts to any other situation. Just keep on sacrificing your help just to speed along the trite backstory of father pushing son too hard to fulfill his own dream, who also bends fire, who also has a burn scar on his left side, who also refuses to be like his father but also wants to be respected by him, who also has a mother sent away from him, who also learns to accept himself. But the difference is I don't care about this one. Zuko's immaturity as a fighter and a person is shown with his emotional overreacting and sporadic uncontrolled bending. Watching him grow into a more controlled, trained fighter parallels his growth as a more mature person. Todoroki is already the best. There isn't such growth to be had there, and all the maturing he needed to get done just happened in one episode. Avatar achieves this growth in a triumphant way when Zuko finally decides to turn away from his father's will. He is a bad guy who is conducting a war just for personal gain. When he finds his own self-identity, the journey to make that discovery creates a powerful moment. But again, we don't care about the journey in this show. Condense it to one episode so we can have the moment already. Also, Endeavor is supposed to be a hero and Lord Ozai is supposed to be a villain, so the father's motivation to be horrible makes more sense in Avatar. The show is freaking gorgeous too. Why can't they invest equally in the narrative as they do in the animation? Look at this! I don't buy the Endeavor All Might rivalry, at least yet, because we have no idea what transpired between them other than Endeavor has always been the number 2 hero in the world, some nebulous rating system they have yet to explain. It's quite childish. It doesn't feel earned, so it's very hard to get invested. We were just shown earlier how jokingly the tournament was treated with the other one-on-ones, where it barely seemed to be a serious competition at all, which of course makes Izuku's speech of how seriously everyone is taking this, and Todoroki should too, all the more head-scratching. This might be another example of what I was talking about earlier, how the comedy contradicts the show's themes. Like I pointed out in episode 15 and the one-on-one battles, these jokes were clearly intended as comedic moments, but came off as weirdly conflicting ones. It's evidence of the lack of a well-put-together narrative. In Fullmetal Alchemist, comedy early on is relegated to making fun of Ed's height. It may seem like a goofy joke, some silly anime humor, but leads to an important character moment when Winry notices throughout all the hardships, Ed has grown taller. The comedy is interconnected with the narrative, Ed becoming a man, physically and emotionally, leaving with a poignant image. I know, this season carries a simple message. Real heroes strive to excel in everything they do and will not accept failure. Izuku needs to learn that. Sadly, that seems to be the only motivation present and acts as an excuse to care rather than a reason, and I don't appreciate how each competition is constructed to just represent that theme and not also be a good competition on its own. It needs to stop placating the shonen tropes, creating familiar moments from other shonens, and instead make its own. It feels like a skin-deep imitation, its writing is shallow, and is starting to even come off as pandering. Whenever you hear anyone talk about or see a video analyzing the show, it's often relegated to a discussion of the themes and characters and never the actual content those things interact with because it's so weak. It's only about the moments. It's only about the feelings. It's never what's in between. Well, that's the video. I hope you at least found it interesting. I'm sorry I kind of went on this tirade of a show everyone loves. But, you know, it's how I feel, man. I'm being honest. Being genuine here. Subscribe. Share. Like, all the things. Follow me on Twitter. Yeah. This is going to be a tough one to overcome.